We're joined by Mohannad Hadi, the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator for the Occupied Palestinian Territories. He's also the Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. How long can Palestinians hold out in Gaza with no food, no water, no fuel coming into the Strip?
Thank you for hosting me. Actually, this is the question that I ask myself every time I go to Gaza, every time I see women and children there, every time I see an elderly person. I ask myself the same question: Who thought that we would see yet another Ramadan while the war while Gaza is still in the same situation? We were given hope when we had the ceasefire. We started to bring more aid from all directions. But now we're waiting for a second round of ceasefire. We're hoping that now in Doha, those negotiations will result into something fruitful. What we want is a permanent ceasefire. The people I talk to in Gaza have always been asking for a permanent ceasefire. They want to be given the chance to reestablish their lives. People now are extremely concerned about the negotiations. It's not just about food, which is extremely scarce, of course. It's about protection. It's about people to be given the opportunity to re-establish their lives.
I may be stating the obvious here, but starving a population, because that is what is currently underway, it's not legal.
Well, the number one thing we ask for when we do our work is to ask all parties to respect the humanitarian principles. You know, no one can be taken as a hostage as a result of the war. The victims of this war are the women and the children, who are the innocent one, actually. And this is what we have been asking from day one. We've seen enough casualties, but also we have to remember that, yes, we want the hostages to be released immediately. We also want to make sure that aid reaches the people. And we're talking here about electricity, of course. We're talking about food, shelter, medicine. Education is something extremely important. We have a generation of children in Gaza that have missed out on education. And I, throughout my 35 years of working in the humanitarian field, I've seen the consequences when there is a lack of education. Kids must be put in school. And having said all of that, let's not forget about the psychosocial support that the people of Gaza need.
Since you mentioned your career in the field of humanitarian aid and relief, have you ever seen something like this, like what we're watching now in the Gaza Strip with nothing going in?
I have never seen anything close to what I have seen in Gaza. This past year for me has been more painful than the 34 years that I have worked as in the humanitarian field. I've never been to a place where everything is needed. I've never been to a place where bathrooms were the topic of everyone. Women, when I speak to them, the first thing they talk about most of the times is protection, is privacy, is dignity. But they talk about bathrooms, having access to toilet. Women told me many times if they have access to safe drinking water, they don't drink it, even pregnant women, because going to the bathroom is an agony, is a journey of them that could end up in a catastrophe. You can't imagine the situation in Gaza. Gaza is 2 million sad stories. I remember I've met a gentleman, an elderly gentleman, at the beginning of my assignment there, the first or the second time that I went to Gaza. And he basically told me, he said, listen, you're getting this wrong. You need to look at us as zombies in Gaza. We are 2 million zombies. The family ties are broken, community ties are broken, society is broken. You have to address us as individuals. At the beginning, really, I didn't understand it. I thought that I had enough experience to address the situation in Gaza. And then I realized, really, I had a lot to learn in Gaza.
Look, I'm reluctant to even ask you this, but what happens if this situation continues, right? If no food goes in, no water goes in, no fuel goes in. Today is day 11. What happens if we get to day 20, 30? Who knows how long it might take?
We have the formula, the recipe of a disaster here. Basically, what we managed to take in those throughout the 42 days, as we describe it, is from hand to mouth. It's aid going directly to the people. It's not like people had the opportunity to stockpile, and there are no people have no income. There's actually no currency. There's no money. There's no paper money in Gaza. And it's, as I told you, it's just one challenge after the other. I don't even want to imagine the scenario where the ceasefire talks in Doha fail. As a humanitarian, I just can't imagine that we will be faced with this situation again. We appreciate what Qatar is doing. We appreciate what the mediators are doing. And that's honestly, every time I watch Jazeera News, I'm just waiting for the good news, waiting for somebody to tell me we have phase 2 of ceasefire. I don't know how I can go back to Gaza and face those women and children with the resumption of the military activity. I can't even imagine how a resumption of military activities could be or what it means for the people.
Yeah, the talks have resumed in Doha, the talks that you referenced, but we have no idea at this point whether they are actually going to, whether there's going to be a positive outcome and whether there will be a resumption of humanitarian aid. There is just no indication of that at this point. Mohannad Hadi, you're the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator for the Occupied Palestinian Territory, and we thank you for coming on the Al Jazeera NewsHour.
Thank you for hosting me.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.